In this video, I'm going to tell you about the cheapest and easiest ways to build Warcry warbands for death and destruction. This is the last in a series about cheap and easy warbands you can do for Warcry. This is Age of Sigmar's Warcry. It's the fantasy skirmish kind of game from, Games Workshop, and it can be expensive to get into if you make it, but if you look around a little bit, do some math, and you get the new books, obviously, that have the stats and all the updated points and all that stuff, you can get by pretty inexpensively in some situations. So we're going to start with the Glimspite gets, because when you go to Games Workshop's website and say, I want to see all the stuff for destruction, it puts the subcategories with Glimspite gets at the top, so who am I to, say otherwise? Grot spider riders are what I would love to try to run, but the issue is right now that they are temporarily out of stock online. Also, their listing has the evil little circle and arrow rune, and what that means, that little thing you see it on the website over at Games Workshop, that means that this is only available to order from Games Workshop. It is no longer available in the normal distribution channels. Now, your store may have it, maybe just because they've had it for a long time. It's been sitting on the shelf for quite some time. It's not to say your store doesn't have it. It does say that your store can't get it like through normal distribution. It's kind of a special thing from what I understand. But just be aware of the little circle and arrow rune because it means that it's a little bit more difficult to get that thing. And the Grot Spider Riders, though very cool, are more difficult to get and currently impossible to get because they're also temporarily sold out online. If you can find them, maybe they're sitting at the local store that you like to go to and they're on the shelf right now, you can run 1 Spider Rider boss and 5 Spider Riders, the normal, which makes sense, and get a 970 point list out of them. And they're just pretty cool looking. I'm hoping I come across a box of them soon. $35, which is also a spectacularly cheap price. If you can find those guys, you can run yourself a nice little list of Spider Riders for about $35. Now, if you want something that's in stock and not afflicted with the evil rune, then you want the standard Glimspite Gets Shoota/Stabba box. It's a box that can make Shootas, or it can make Stabbas, as it generally goes. You get 1 Moon Clan boss, right? He's about 150 points. And then, the box is 20 models, so you can't run 20 models, but you can run another 12 at 70 points each, and that'll get you 990 points, which is real close to 1,000, so that's nice. That's just a big mass of little people. And you can decide if you want to make them Shootas or Stabbas and things like that. And that may tweak the points a little bit, maybe 5 points either direction. So you have to keep it, that in mind. But for $38, 20 models, you're done. You can do that. It's not quite 35 like the Spider Riders, but it's pretty good. So Glimspite Gets are actually a pretty decent, starter to get into the hobby. Now, I don't know if they're effective. I'm not here to talk about how good they are, what the pro strats are. I'm not the guy to ask. I'm just telling you here, this is the cheapest way to get in for this particular faction. So, if you're interested in this faction and spending a little bit less money, then that's the way to go. Next up on the list is the Augor Maw Tribes, which seems to be difficult for me to say. This is take 4. There's not a single box you can get. So many of those ogres, or whatever, they're big dudes, and they have a lot of points to them. The issue is that you can maybe field 4, but the points never come out to get close to 1,000. They're either over 1,000, or you're at 820 points. And you're like, okay, well, I should be able to get another guy in there, but you can't, because they're maybe 190 points each or something like that. So the math doesn't come out real well on any of them if you want to just buy 1 box. But if you're okay with buying 2 things, then what you can do is get yourself the Maw Tribe's Tyrant, who is a single kind of hero leader type dude, and he's $35. And then you can get the Ogor Gluttons, and that's a box that's $48. So you're spending $83 at this point, but you are getting a 950 point list, which is basically 3 Gluttons and 1 of the the Tyrant. And then you are kind of set. You've got 4 models, which is far less to paint, obviously, although they are physically bigger. So maybe if we're actually going to get into surface area. But nonetheless, 4 models, there you go. Now, again, I'm not necessarily your pro strat headquarters, but I will tell you, It may not be great to just only have 4 models in your group, but if you're looking to kind of save some money, this is the easiest you can do it, or the cheapest you can do it as well, in the Ogor Maw tribes. That box of gluttons, if you use the Crusher as the leader, then the rest of them in there, the best you can do is 900 points, otherwise you go over again. So that's why going with this Tyrant, who is a special, extra model, and he's $35, and then a box of gluttons is going to get you to 950, which is not bad. And then you can get out there with basically 4 models and try to, wreck some face. Now we get into the orruks, and there's 2 main groups in the orruks. There's the Bone Splitters and the Iron Jaws. We're going to start with the Bone Splitters. Now, depending on which way you want to go, Bone Splitters or Iron Jaw, in my opinion, very much relates to how much green skin you want to paint. Because if you're going Bone Splitters, it's mostly green skin, because those guys are nearly naked. Whereas Iron Jaws, they are much more modest. They're wearing a lot of armor, and every once in a while you can see like an armpit or maybe a chin, and that's about it. Otherwise, you just paint armor and there's orcs underneath there, believe me. So anyway, with the Bone Splitters, honestly, both of these lists have just great single buy a box done kind of lists. So if you buy the Savage Orruks box, which is $54, gives you, I think, like 20 models. But the thing is that the Savage Orruks box is also the More Boys box, and it's also the Arrow Boys box. So you've got so many options with that one box. You've got 3 different leaders in that box that you can choose from. I think you kind of have to choose which one to build. I don't think you have the ability to build all 3, but you have that, take a look at that. And then tons of troops in either the kind of Arrow Boys, the More Boys, the Orruks. You've got a lot of different options. Currently temporarily out of stock online, which is a bummer. But there's no Circle Arrow Evil Runes, so you do have the ability, hopefully, to get it again soon. If not, your local shop very possibly might have it on the shelf. But if you're looking for basically a lot of green skin, $54 gets you that box and you are ready to rock. Now, if you want to get into a little bit more modesty, a little bit more armor, and you don't want to paint as much green skin, then you just want to buy a box of Ard Boys for the Iron Jaws. A box of Ard Boys is $60. Nope, I'm a liar. It's $57. It's 960 points is the list that you can make, which is basically an Ard Boy boss and 7 Ard Boys. And you can tweak it a little bit here and there because they've got a couple of different weapon loadouts, but that's actually even in stock if you're looking at the website. So if you're a person who doesn't have a game store near you and you order from the website, you have that ability. Otherwise, your local store probably has it in stock as well. But again, $57 versus $54 for the Savage Orruks. Both of those will give you, with just one box, a great list with lots of different options. And I got to be honest, I kind of want to box the Ard Boys myself. I think I'm going to go that way. I'm not going to do the yellow armor. I think what I'm going to do is I'll probably prime them black, spray them real dark gray from above, like a zenithal, and then throw a wash on them, and then dry brush a bunch of silver, because I don't really think that when they build their armor that the orcs take a lot of time to make sure that they get like really properly heat-treated, enameled kind of paint on the armor. I have a suspicion they find something that's gross and just rub it on there, and then the first time that they run through the jungle, they rub half of it off or whatever along the leading edges. So I'll probably do a bunch of dry brushing and stuff like that, but not a lot of green, so that's kind of cool too. So we're out of destruction and into death. The Bringers of Death is the name of this book, and this has got all the stats in it. And when we start off, we're going to start off with the Flesh Eater Courts, not the Fletch Eater Courts. That's a totally different thing altogether. Not a lot of options in the Flesh Eater Courts. Kind of mainly a lot of old models, to be perfectly honest with you. Initially, I was thinking you just buy yourself a $40 box of Crypt Ghouls, and you're good. You've got the Crypt Ghast Courtier as the leader in that box, and then you could take 14 other Crypt Ghouls. You're at 15 models, which is kind of your max. You're at 910 points, which is not as close to 1,000 as I personally would like. So then I thought, well, okay, $40, sure, but not quite to 1,000 points. Is there something I could do that would maybe bump me up a little bit better? And there is. You can get the Abhorrent Arc Regent, who is kind of a cool guy standing on the edge of a weird pillar. I don't know. He's $30. He's one of those kind of hero characters. It comes in a little plastic clamshell. He's $30, 220 points. And then you run 14 Crypt Ghouls, and that's 990 points, which is way closer to 1,000. Both of those things are in stock, no Circle Arrow, so if you do want to go into the kind of gross and ghouly sort of Flesh Eater Courts direction, that Abhorrent Arc Regent and the Crypt Ghouls box, altogether it's going to be $70, but it's still going to be a fully fleshed out army with a lot of models. So if you're looking to take a lot of objectives, move a bunch of stuff around, sometimes a bunch of models can also be really good, but you got to paint them generally or whatever. Legions of Nagash. I really like skeletons. Unfortunately, the regular old skeleton warriors will not work. I mean, technically, yes, you can run skeleton warriors into a Warcry. It's just that if you buy a box of them, there's not enough points per dude. They're like 55 points a skeleton person or whatever, and you only get 10 in the box, and there's just not enough to make a 1,000-point list with just a single thing. And honestly, even if you throw like an okay or a pretty decent kind of hero into that, it doesn't work either with just plain old regular bog standard skeletons. So, Graveguard is a good. Well, I was going to say it's a good option. It's an option that will work. Personally, I think that they look goofy. I just don't like the look of the Graveguard. They're an older model set. They're plastic, but still, they're older. I think it's the wings on the helmet. Anytime you put wings on a helmet, I lose interest, just all instantly. I don't know what it is. Horns on a helmet? Sure, I'm there, that's fine. Spike on the top of the helmet? Okay, whatever, that's cool. But wings, just especially bat wings, it just looks goofy. Not for me. But, if you want to go down this road, this is the road that you need to travel. So a box of Graveguard, and you get 8 of them with the white blade and the crypt shield. Those are 90 points each. Those will cost $44. You get a box, I think, 10 in there, but that's how many you would use for your list. And then for your hero, you go with the White King with the Baleful Tomb Blade, which is a pretty cool model. Again, a bit of an older sculpt, but still pretty cool. He's a pretty iconic, I think, within the Death group. And you can tell how old he is because he's $15. He's one of those little plastic clamshell models that's still only $15. So, definitely not a bad deal. You're spending $59 total, $44 for the Graveguard and $15 for the White King. And then you've got yourself a decent little list that'll come up to about 940 points. So, skeletons get painted quickly. These, maybe not quite as quickly because there's not a lot of bones showing. There's a lot more armor. So that's, an issue. But, yeah, and, again, like I said, kind of ugly. But hopefully, maybe we'll see some soon. I'm really hoping that we see some cool Warcry stats for the models and the skeletons specifically that are coming in Cursed City very, very soon. On to the Nighthaunt, which I've already done a Nighthaunt Warcry group. I painted them all on Twitch back, several months ago, back in 2020, I think. But if you wanted to go as quickly and cheaply as possible, there's not a single box that you could really do unless, well, if you can get your friend to say 5 extra points is okay, then you could go with the Grimghast Reapers, because the issue with the Grimghast Reapers box, which is only $45, you can only either get 870 points or 1,005 points. There's no list really in between there because of the points cost and the granularity. It just doesn't work out. So if your friend will be like, yeah, you usually lose when I play you, so I'll give you the extra 5 points, then, they're being a pal. And, then go with your Grimghast Reapers because you can make the boss who's the extoller of Shaiish or whatever with the bell and all that stuff, and you have a good time. Now, if your friends are not cool, well, then what you're going to need to do is to do something different and get yourself the Cairn Wraith leader for your thing. And again, very old model, $15. So old, I used it in one of my earliest, best viewed videos, the secrets of liquid green stuff. Ciao. And so, yeah, that Cairn Wraith is, he's kind of what most of the Nighthaunt have, at least visually, kind of been patterned by. He was the first super cool model that was just kind of floating on that one little wisp of his cloak and all that kind of stuff, at least the first one that I've ever seen. And now, the entire Nighthaunt army is kind of based off of him. So he's kind of nostalgic, kind of iconic, and would be a great leader to run in your list. And then you want the easy-to-build Chainrasp Hordes box, which is $40. And then you take 9 of those, comes with about 720 points. You add on the 220 points for your leader. You got a 940 point list for your Nighthaunts, and you're running 10 guys. It's not too bad. Like I said, you could do the Grimghast Reapers thing too, but you're going to be 5 points over, so you'll have to see if your friends are cool. Or, if you're going to a tournament, that probably won't be usable. And then lastly is a group that I don't really know much about, the Osiarch Bone Reapers. From what I understand, they like to reap bone, so that's cool. And your real only choice is the Mortek Guard. Like they're like literally the only troop choice that I could see really in the list on the website. So Mortek Guard, and you can get the Hekatos, which is the leader, Mortek Hekatos, and build him or her, I don't know, and then the other 9 troops that are in there pretty much, and cost $60. You get yourself 945 points. You have a list and ready to go. So that's really easy because it's 1 box. So that's not too bad. The downside is that, like I said, there's not a lot of other stuff in that list that's going to work great for Warcry. There's decent stuff in Warcry's book as far as leaders and things like that. And yeah, there's some other, let's see here. There's some other folks in that, you know, like the Necropolis Stalkers and the Morghast Harbinger and things like that. But they're all like bigger models, and they're like, you're going to have like 1 or maybe 2 of those in your list. But if you need the normal boots on the ground type, even though, you know, they don't really wear boots because they're skeleton sort of, then you're going to need to pretty much buy that Mortek Guard. And you can make an entire list out of it for $60. So that's the end of this series. If you're interested in getting into Warcry and you want to get in the cheapest and easiest way, this video plus the other 2 videos I did, one for Order and one for Chaos, I'll put the playlist, pachow. You can check that out and then figure out, this is at least how I can start. The benefit to this is that you can at least start, and then once you've got that down, you can look at it and go, yeah, but I could get that leader because he's pretty cool. I like that model. It's really neat or whatever. Or it would give me all kinds of synergies and force multipliers and a bunch of other strategic stuff that I frankly don't necessarily get. So you make the choices and then start to add on. But this makes a nice base for both destruction and death, and the ones that I talk about in Chaos and Order. All of these make a great, inexpensive, simple base. And then from there, you can start adding on to really make it so that your Warcry warband gets a lot more modular. It gets, when the time comes to play, you can be like, yeah, I'm going to move this guy and this guy and this guy around. Like, I've already got a Nighthaunt group done, but I want to add more Nighthaunts so that I can have more choices when I'm building my lists, that kind of thing. This will give you the base to start with that. So if you're interested, like I said, hit up that playlist and check the other videos out and have fun playing Warcry. And I'm hoping that this helps you start cheap and easy. 1, 2, 3, folks.